Hi, I'm Soffiyah Elijah, Executive Director of the Alliance of Families for Justice. I just did a great interview, Sakara.com. It was amazing. I hope everybody will get involved. Follow us on afj-ny.org. It's time to get involved and change the system.
I want everybody to get to know about the organization and the mission.
Okay. Well, the Alliance of Families for Justice is a small nonprofit organization based in Harlem. It's a statewide organization whose mission is to support, empower, and mobilize families who have incarcerated loved ones and people who have a criminal record. We were founded in September of 2016, and as I said, we're based in Harlem because Harlem is the reentry center for New York State. About 50% of the people who are paroled from prisons in New York State return to the Harlem community.
So I would like to know what guided your interest into working with families of incarcerated.
Well, I'm a criminal defense lawyer by training, and over the course of my career, I've represented obviously hundreds and hundreds of people, and one of the things that was clear to me, not only from my professional work but on a personal level, is that their family members suffer in silence. They don't have any place to turn, and they literally do time with their loved ones, but they don't have anyone to talk with about it. And so it became clear to me that they had a need that wasn't being met. And similarly, as the narrative about criminal justice reform was evolving, there was a lot of discussion about people who had been sent to prison and their needs, but there was no discussion about their family members who were suffering quietly alongside them.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because, you know, you're right, a lot of people don't think about it from that aspect. So I'm wondering, what are some of the psychological things you can really pinpoint that you notice with family members? Maybe like 2 or 3 things that stood out to you.
One of the things is depression, a sense of hopelessness, feeling abandoned, isolated, helpless, disempowered, and really just withdrawing from participation in civic engagement, withdrawing socially, not taking care of their health. So you have kind of a spiraling effect where the lack of support creates this, depression, poor eating habits, which results in poor health, and then it just spirals and spirals downward.
Right, and you know, it's really unfortunate, and I was told that there's new laws coming out now, so you would have to go through vendors to get the food now to your loved ones that's incarcerated.
So yes, so we had a situation in New York State, and we have had for some time, where family members could bring care packages with them when they came to visit their loved ones. Obviously those care packages would be screened for contraband, but it would save a lot of money as far as shipping for family members if they could bring those packages when they visited. They would bring fresh fruits and vegetables, perishable items, because most people know that the food that is offered inside the prison is mostly substandard. And so a lot of people survive based on these care packages that their family members bring to them. So at the beginning of January, the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision started a pilot program in 3 facilities restricting the ability of family members to bring care packages and saying that they could only order items from approved vendors, and the items that were allowed precluded fresh fruits and vegetables and a whole host of different types of clothing items, which was very, very difficult for people who are inside and their family members. So together with other organizations across the state, we launched a campaign to push back on that pilot project, and in a few short weeks the governor rescinded the policy. I would like to share that although we succeeded in having the policy rescinded, the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision has stated that they plan to reinstate the policy at some point. So we're keeping the pressure up. And it's one of the ways that our family members have been able to feel empowered and mobilized, because they have taken control of the campaign on a statewide level, and along with our partner organizations have really spearheaded a postcard campaign to make their concerns and their voices heard to Governor Cuomo. So we hope that people will continue with that effort so that when DOCS comes out with their new policy, it better be one that's not family unfriendly, shall I say.
Yes, and totally, because honestly, it's they're incarcerated, but they're still alive at the end of the day. Like, they still have friends, family,
people who love them and care about them. And it's very special to know that someone cares about you and has taken the time to select those items that mean something to you to send to you. And that can't be accomplished with a group of restricted vendors. And similarly, people inside need to be able to order the items from whatever mail order place that they would like to, as long as obviously they don't contain contraband. And there's no reason to restrict them to certain vendors.
And I totally agree with that. And I was going to ask you as well, as far as, family members, community members, friends, what are ways that people can help on the outside, those who are inside?
Oh, well, we like to say that there's always a way for someone to engage with our work, no matter where they are, no matter what their skill set is. People can always come and help with outreach, because we go to various bus pickup places throughout New York City in the evenings on Friday and Saturday night and give out materials to family members so that they know these services exist. That's one thing. People can come to our monthly community organizing meetings, which are usually the third Thursday in each month. People can help us with raising money, with doing speaking engagements, providing opportunities for us to be known on social media. They can help push out our message. They can write letters to elected officials. They can go and visit their elected officials in their district offices. We have people who have graphic design skills that help us.
Very nice.
Spans the gamut, really. We have some lawyers who volunteer their time. We have some doctors.
What upcoming events you guys have?
Oh, we have several. So the first is Sunday, March 25th at 2 p.m. We'll be at the Brooklyn Museum. And that's going to be a focus actually on closing Attica and the March for Justice that we held in the fall, which was a 19-day march from Harlem to Albany to call attention to the human rights abuses that were happening inside the prisons. So we're hoping that people will come. It's going to be like a reunion, but also an opportunity for people to come and learn about what's happening in Attica and in the prisons across the state. There's been growing awareness about why Rikers should be closed, but people don't quite understand the same and worse is happening in Attica and other upstate prisons. So that's happening on Sunday the 25th of March. And then on Friday and Saturday, April 13th and 14th, we're having a 2-day regional conference here in New York City at the Unitarian Church of All Souls, located at 1157 Lexington Avenue, which is the corner of East 80th Street. And so that Friday evening, we'll start off with a dinner and keynotes address by Bishop Darren Ferguson, who was an amazing speaker. And then the following day, on Saturday the 14th of April, we'll be having a series of panel discussions and breakout sessions that are focusing on the impact of mass incarceration on families in our communities. And last but not least, at the end of June, June 29th, 30th, and July 1st, we're having a first ever family retreat. It's a statewide family retreat for families that have incarcerated loved ones to come together in a beautiful setting upstate New York, where we'll spend 3 days doing self-care, discussions about issues that are specifically relevant to families who have incarcerated loved ones, and building a network where people will feel supported. So if people want more information about any of those events, they can call us at 347-973-0580 or go to our website at afj-ny.org to get further information. All of our events are free, and we're looking forward to people joining us.
Thank you very much, so people can have a chance to meet you and find out more information to definitely deal with the tough situation of mass incarceration.
Yeah.
Teenagers that are sentenced with such long sentences in
Yes.
jail. Can we talk a little bit about the scientific background of that or medical reason behind that?
We have a situation in New York State where we've been very slow to raise the age of criminal responsibility. Very slow to recognize that children should be treated as children and not as adults. and to embrace the science that and all the research that has shown that the human brain develops in such a way that the last portion of the brain to develop is the frontal lobe, and that's the area of the brain that controls impulse, which is why teenagers do the things that they do. But instead of recognizing that they don't have full impulse control, our criminal and justice system deals with children as if they are adults and prosecutes them and sentences them as if they are adults. And so the New York State Legislature just last year took a slow step in slightly raising the age of criminal responsibility, but still leaving many, many children vulnerable to the full efforts and full force of the criminal justice system, and subject children to very long sentences, even though the human brain doesn't develop fully until the late 20s. So we're engaged in an effort, along with many other advocacy organizations, to do really comprehensive youth justice reform that would no longer allow children to be treated as adults in these settings.
Wow. And then I know with having law libraries, it's really important, because a lot of times when people are in jail, they learn more, they want to get out early, figure out exactly why they have as much time as they do. And I did a little research, and I found out that they're actually trying to get rid of some of the law libraries.
Yes, there's an initiative. It hasn't been well publicized, but we're staying on top of them, where there's a plan to eliminate law libraries from the various prisons throughout New York State. That's a very dangerous move. It's a very dangerous move because, as you said, people need to be able to research their cases so that they can be abreast of the law. Most people who go to prison are poor and can't afford to hire a lawyer, and so by using the law library they can educate themselves and represent themselves. But if their access to a law library is eliminated, they wouldn't be able to do this. You can't imagine any law school that would eliminate law libraries, and if there is ever a need to have a law library, it is for people to pursue their liberty. So we're very much against any policy that would take away law libraries, and if and when that policy is announced, we'll be all on top of it.
That's good to know. Yeah, to know that someone's actually out there to help and support with these situations. And with high-profile cases, such as the one with Meek Mill, if you were the lawyer that was involved with that case specifically, what would you have presented instead of the jail time that he's participating in?
I mean, how would I have done Meek Mill's case differently? Yeah. Lawyers really tend to try not to Monday morning quarterback another lawyer's efforts, and since I wasn't in the middle of the case, I don't know if it would be fair for me to do. I am aware of some of the issues that were raised in pushing for the revocation of his parole, and certainly the position that the judge took in giving him jail time for what could only be called technical violations, because he wasn't convicted of any subsequent behavior. And it seems to me that she was very harsh in her way of handling him, and knowing that he had a career as a performer, to restrict his travel, to not leave the city or the state, seemed like it was really vindictive. And so I think that I would, and I believe his lawyer did try to make every effort to expose that behavior on her part. You cannot vote while you're on parole. Once you are off parole, your right to vote can be restored in New York State. In some states it's not that way, but in New York it is. But people who are coming home from prison confront all kinds of collateral consequences, not being given access to housing, access to employment, access to education. There are some higher education institutions that won't allow you on the campus if you have a felony conviction. You won't be able to sometimes to get credit. It's difficult to just pursue the process of getting your identification, and then health insurance, and all of those things. And in some instances, if you want to go back and live with your family members and they live in public housing, in some places you'll be banned from living in public housing if you have a conviction that's related to drug trafficking. There have been some laws that have been changed in New York City with respect to this, and some progress has been made on the state level, but it's not widespread. And there are many challenges, licensing restrictions, so there were jobs in hospitals, for instance, child care, getting a barber's license. Many of these professions were restricted if people had a felony conviction. There's a group of advocacy organizations that have been working for several years now, along with some representatives from the governor's office, to try to get some of these policies changed. And we have made some progress, but there's a long way to go, because there's still a societal stigma that haunts people, despite the fact that they've done their time and they should be entitled to a second chance. Our society is unforgiving and really engages in perpetual punishment. That's part of what we're trying to get rid of.
Absolutely. And speaking of that perpetual punishment and, other alternatives, what are some of the alternatives that are out there that you would say that may have, helped a few cases that you've seen before?
Alternatives to incarceration?
Yes.
Well, I think vocational training, educational training. There are many people who are incarcerated who have untreated mental health needs, and unfortunately in the communities from which most of the prison population comes, and that's mostly Black and Latino poor communities, there's a real taboo about mental health care. Not much quality mental health care in those communities, and so you have a lot of people who find themselves involved with the criminal justice system because they haven't been involved with quality mental health care. So I think there's a number of ways we should do diversion programs for those people. People who have drug involvement should be diverted. People who haven't had adequate education should be given an opportunity to get quality education in settings that are tailored for their needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not everybody learns in the same way, so we can't cookie cutter learning any more than we cookie cutter anything else that human beings do. So I think that would serve to greatly reduce the prison population, and then we have to change our whole thinking about whether or not we think it's appropriate to put people in cages. As a society, we're all into changing how we treat animals. Dogs can go on planes now, and they can come into restaurants, and you see people on subway holding them on their laps. So you have more support and care and attention to how a dog or a cat is treated than how a human being is treated. And there's something wrong with our society if that's the way we're going to be dealing with human beings. I would say that if someone's behavior is so abhorrent that we think that they should be dealt with the criminal justice system, we need to take a long, hard look at how has our society failed that individual first.
Absolutely, I agree. There's a lot of things that happen before, the actual crime.
Right. People don't wake up one morning and say, when I grow up, I want to be in a cage.
Exactly.
That just doesn't happen.
And then, I'm asking you questions, so people obviously get these answers from the interview, but you also, you do speeches, and you went to Philadelphia recently.
Right. I was in Philly for the town hall that focused a lot on Meek Mill's case, and that was quite an experience. I was really honored to be included in that. We had an opportunity to speak to a national audience about some of the problems in our criminal and justice system and explore some ways that it needs to be changed.
Mm-hmm. And, that's really great, especially because, like you said, it's a national audience and it is such a high-profile case.
Very much so, yes. There were lots of Meek Mill supporters there. Yeah.
So for those out there who are listening and they're watching right now, if they want to be a part of the organization, can you give them the website and social media, if there's a hashtag that your organization uses?
Okay. So they can engage with us on the social media by starting with our website at afj-ny.org. They can follow us on social media. We're afjny.org. Hashtag March for Justice, March the number 4 Justice, hashtag Close Attica, hashtag Shut Down Attica. They can call us at 347-973-0580. That's 347-973-0580. And for many of our listeners or people who are concerned who are incarcerated, they wouldn't be able to follow us on social media or email, but they can write to us. And our address is 8 West 126th Street on the 3rd floor, New York, New York, 10027. Again, 8 West 126th Street, 3rd floor, New York, New York, 10027.
I wanted to ask you about Attica. So, I know there's talk about shutting that down. Can you tell them a little bit more information about that?
We've been calling for the shutdown of Attica Prison because it is the most notorious prison in New York State and probably the most notorious, if not one of the most notorious ones throughout the country. And it has a long history that stems back at least as far as 1971, when in September the men inside Attica decided that they were going to resist the inhuman treatment that they were subjected to, and they rebelled and they took over the facility for several days. And then on September 13th, Governor Rockefeller declared he was refusing to meet with them, even though many of his trusted deputies urged him to meet with them. He refused to do so and ordered the New York State troopers to retake the facility. And then after the facility was retaken, the men who were in the yard were brutally beaten and tortured for many, many hours afterwards. And then they were charged with the deaths of the hostages. And it took many lawsuits before finally they were all exonerated. The state of New York has never apologized to the families of the people who were murdered inside that facility. And the inhumane conditions in Attica persist to this day. People are beaten, brutalized, and murdered inside Attica routinely, and nothing is done about it. And so we've been calling for the closure of Attica and other similarly inhumane facilities. Well, we're very, very pleased with the efforts that we do with family members, and our family members generally come and they get involved in the work, and they're guiding the future of the organization. That's what it was designed to do. And our plan is that after we fine-tune this approach in New York State, that we are going to transfer it and build it out in other states as well, because the same problems exist throughout the country.